So Dana White's Contender Series 2022 has completely wrapped up, and today is the day that I would be recording a video for next week's Dana White's Contender Series card and talking about Dana White's Contender Series in the future. And unfortunately, it's not happening. There's no more Dana White's Contender Series. So let's do a review video of the entire Dana White's Contender Series 2022 card. I'm going to quickly run over all of the fights that happened, all of the cards that happened, and also the guys that got signed, some guys that didn't get signed. And I'm going to talk about what I think that the UFC future could hold for those that got the contract. So let's quickly run through it. It was only a 4-fight card to start off the night as William Souza. I believe he missed weight by a lot. Cancelled the card. The fight, 4-fight card. It wasn't that exciting. Alessandro Costa versus Andres Luna Martinetti was actually a pretty good fight, and I think Alessandro Costa's a UFC level fighter, and I think that I can definitely see him in the UFC coming up soon. I think Dennis Bazooka as well could probably make it to the UFC as well in the future. He's a pretty young guy. I think he's pretty active as well. I think he's fighting next month already, so that's good to see. Aaron Torrentor ended up in the UFC, very short notice replacement, and fought Jailton Almeida, and honestly, although he did get dominated in the fight, he showed really good grappling defense and just really good patience on the ground. But he did get dominated in his debut. I'm not going to pretend like he didn't. But Turkalj, I think if he is still rostered on the UFC roster, I think he can do something, man. Turkalj is a really, really good fighter. He didn't get signed because it wasn't a very exciting fight. But I think that he probably was deserving of a signing just because he is so skilled and he does have highlight reels on the regional scene. Joseph Pyfer got signed. UFC's really trying to build this guy up into something special. It's quite crazy, actually. And in fact, I think that we probably will see Joseph Pyfer become a big name, but UFC's really trying to build this guy. I mean, they gave him a layup in his UFC debut. They've made a big promotional piece about him. Dana White's literally, renting out a house to him right now for free. So he's living in one of Dana White's houses, I believe, or something. Is the situation right now. Crazy. We go into week 2. This is a week where we got 6 people signed, and it was amazing. I love this week. It's actually one of the more exciting weeks we've ever seen. Billy Goff got knocked down so early into the fight, which sucked because I really like Billy Goff as a fighter. I've actually been a fan of him since he fought on the regional scene. And he come back, he got a win, and he hasn't got a debut set, unfortunately. Waldo Cortez Acosta does, though. Got a KO over Danilo Souza, and he's going to be fighting the man of Jared Vanderaa in his debut, actually coming up very soon in about 2 weeks' time. 3 weeks' time, sorry. 4 weeks' time. Well, my ability to read time is terrible, but anyway, it's actually coming up pretty soon. Jared Vanderaa 4-fight losing streak right now. Couple of KOs in there. Cortez Acosta's got KO power and really good boxing, and you know who else has KO power and pretty good boxing? Chase Sherman. So Cortez Acosta versus Jared Vanderaa might play out the same as the Chase Sherman fight, and Acosta really should get a KO in that matchup. So Francis Marshall's got a really tough debut ahead of him. He fought Conor Matthews, and in my opinion, in this fight, he looked really inexperienced against good competition. He showed a big lack to finish the fight against Conor Matthews. He had Conor Matthews hurt at so many points in the fight, and he really could have done something with it, and he just didn't. He showed a lot of just lack of experience, to be brutally honest. And Marcelo Rojo was such a tough debut. Honestly, it's actually kind of crazy. I think originally I was picking Marcelo Rojo to win, but the more I think about it and the more I actually do watch Marcelo Rojo's UFC run, it hasn't looked that amazing, although it has been against great fighters. Marshall might win, but Rojo could be a very live underdog in that matchup. Salvador recently as well just beat Shannon Ross. Shannon Ross got a contract off a loss as well. And I think it might be the first time we've seen Dana White's Contender Series sign someone off a loss, but not just off a loss by decision, off a loss by finish. I don't think we've seen that before. Am I correct in saying that? But Salvador is going to be matched up with Daniel Da Silva, I believe UFC 282. So it's a pay-per-view. Daniel Da Silva winless in the UFC, just got knocked out relatively brutally as well, just over a month ago, and he's already bouncing back in there against Vinicius Salvador, who's got like 10 KOs at least to his name. I think Salvador's going to get a KO on this matchup, man. It's not a good one for Da Silva, and once again, Da Silva, I feel like, got signed too early into his career, and just showed a lot of lack of experience against good competition. Chris Duncan versus Charlie Campbell. Chris Duncan hasn't got a debut set, but probably for good reason because he took a lot of damage in that matchup, and I'm worried about Chris Duncan and coming into the UFC. He's got to be careful. He can't find any powerful strikers. I picked Charlie Campbell to win that matchup, and he was winning until he didn't. Duncan's got a bit of a chin issue, and he's got a little bit of a striking defense issue as well. So hopefully Duncan can solidify all that when he makes his debut, because I'm a little bit worried about the damage that he took in that fight and the damage that he took against Vorshev as well. He's taken a lot of damage in his fights. Now, week number 3 wasn't as exciting, but it was a pretty good week. Carolina Wozniak versus Sandra Lovato wasn't amazing. I do actually low-key think that Wozniak would be a pretty good addition to the UFC, but they didn't choose to sign her, which was somewhat interesting, but it wasn't a great fight, so I think that's fair. But I do think Wozniak is a UFC level fighter. Clayton Carpenter won over Edgar Chairez. It was a great fight, in my opinion. He hasn't got a debut set yet, unfortunately. Eric Silva, 9-1, 35, almost 36 years old. A lot of people are hyping this guy up like crazy right now, which is kind of insane. He's fighting TJ Brown. I'm expecting him to get a submission win in that one. Jamal Pogues taking on Tufon and Chukwi at either heavyweight or light heavyweight. I'm not actually too sure if it's been confirmed to be at 205 or 265 pounds, but if it's at heavyweight, I like Jamal Pogues in this matchup. He showed striking only against Paulo Hanato Jr., but the way that this guy actually gets his fights done is on the mat with his wrestling. So I'm actually going to kind of trust Pogues to wrestle in Chukwi in this debut. Now, Bonacol got a very quick win. They told him, come back, mainly because they probably thought that Bonacol was going to go trending again for Dana White's Contender Series Week 10, and they'd get more viewers, so that is what it is. But yeah, Bonacol, he fights at the very end on week number 10. He's a big name right now as well, so he's got a debut booked as well, which I'll talk about soon. Nazim Sadikov versus Hassan Zada. It was a great fight. Nazim Sadikov beat him up pretty badly for a while, not going to lie, and then he did finally end up getting a finish, but Hassan Zada showed great toughness in that matchup. Sadikov doesn't have a matchup booked yet. Actually, this is the first card of three cards I went 5-0 on. No, I didn't go 5-0 on this card. I picked Jack Cartwright. Interesting. I went 5-0 on 3 cards at least for Dana White's Contender Series. This was not one of them either. Okay, we'll see when they come up. Jose Johnson beat Jack Cartwright. I believe he's got a debut coming up. Haley Cowan beat Claudia Lite. She doesn't have a debut coming up. Ribeiro won in 25 seconds, and he doesn't have a debut lined up. Esteban Rivovic won by great KO. It was a great fight, and he doesn't have a debut lined up either. Very interesting, considering a lot of these fighters that took a lot more damage than Ribeiro, Ribovic, and Cowan already have debuts lined up. But that is what it is. Johnson, he is set to debut against Vince Morales. Honestly, somewhat of a tough fight for Jose Johnson, not going to lie. Vince Morales, he's a great wrestler, but he's fallen in love with his hands. And Jose Johnson is a great Muay Thai fighter. He's 6 foot tall at 135 as well, which is great. But he showed really, really good grappling against Jake Cartwright. I thought that was a pretty close decision, interesting decision, but I might go Johnson by KO, man. This guy's striking is going to be underrated because of his Dana White's Contender Series fight, but Johnson, he does have great striking if he chooses to use it, and I think that he will over Morales in this one here. Morales lost to Jonathan Martinez on the feet, but he's looked pretty good, he's looked good, but I think that we're going to see Jose Johnson win his debut. Ribeiro, I'm glad he got signed to the UFC. If this guy, honestly, if Claudio Ribeiro loses all of his fights in the UFC, wins all of his fights in the UFC and goes on a crazy run, it doesn't matter how Ribeiro's career goes, it's gonna be fun to watch. Ribeiro's a very entertaining fighter. I know we only saw 25 seconds of him, but you watch his regional stuff, that guy throws with mad intentions. He's trying to finish you at all times, and that's gonna be something very exciting to look forward to in the future. I can't wait to see his debut. Hopefully, I'm wishing it was sooner. Denise Gomez beat Rayanne Amanda. She's actually already fought in the UFC. She took a short notice fight against Loma Lookboonmee. She looked okay in the matchup. She didn't look amazing, but she looked okay. It was pretty good. I think Denise Gomez maybe could go on a good run on a full camp if she fights maybe favourable opponents. Cameron Simon looked pretty good against Joshua and Kim. Joshua and Kim looked amazing until he just gassed out, which is insane because he's so experienced in MMA and was so highly touted by so many people, which is interesting, but good for Simon. I believe he's like 21, 22 years old, so that's good for him. I think he's got a lot of time to improve and look better and maybe get a couple of favourable matchups, build up that record a little bit. Jesus Santos Aguilar. I think that Jesus Santos Aguilar and Clayton Carpenter should debut against each other. I know it's a little bit of a weird thing to say, but submitted Erison Verhey. This is actually the card that I did really bad on. And now we've got Darius Flowers, a good friend of my channel actually. If you didn't know, Darius Flowers, he's watched a couple of my videos, and he actually went on another YouTube channel, and he gave me a little bit of a shout out on their channel. Like, I don't know about you guys, but if I had a UFC fighter doing an interview with me, I wouldn't really want them giving another channel a shout out, but Darius Flowers loves the channel so much that he decided to give me a shout out. So I'm looking forward to Darius Flowers' career, man. He's fought it most of it at 185 pounds, and he fought Gogaladze at 170, and now he's talking about fighting at 155. Very interesting to see what Darius Flowers is going to bring to whatever weight class he takes place in. But he's a very powerful guy, very friendly guy. He's actually He really likes me, so I'm happy for Flowers, man. Michael Parkin, I don't know where this guy's ceiling is, because look at the level of competition he fought. Like, what? His amateur career, he went 7-0-1 against fighters that were like inexperienced or losing records. His professional career, the whole career is against fighters with losing records, apart from one that was 7-7. And then he fought Eduardo Neves. Eduardo Neves threw the kitchen sink at him. Michael Parkin took it, got hurt, took it, and then Neves gassed out 1 minute into the fight. If you have not seen Eduardo Neves versus Michael Parkin, watch it. Eduardo Neves gasses out in 1 minute. In 1 minute, he's gassed out. I went to boxing for the first time in probably 6 months last week, and no, only a few days ago, but anyway, I probably have better cardio to last at least a minute in an MMA fight. Like, what is Eduardo Neves doing? Bro, you're a professional fighter with 1 minute of cardio. I can't believe it. But anyway, week 5 was not a good week for me. It was the worst week of all of them. But then, week number 6, I come back. This is my week. Well, this is my first week I went 5-0. The first week I went 5-0 was week 6. No, I lied to you guys. I went Alex Morgan on this card. What weeks did I go 5-0 in? I went 5-0 in 3 weeks. I'm so confused. But anyway, the point is, Blake Builder, he looked pretty good against Alex Morgan. I don't know where his ceiling is because he is so hittable on the feet. But yeah, good for Blake Builder. He got a good fight, a good win. Victoria Dudakova, she beat Maria Silva and kind of dominated Maria Silva. And that means something. Like, Maria Silva's a UFC level fighter through and through, 110% could be in the UFC right now, win a couple of fights at least. And Victoria Dudakova, not even 24 years old yet, looked amazing in that matchup, which is absolutely insane. So good for Dudakova. Mateusz Rebecki, this guy needs to debut soon. I want to see Mateusz Rebecki fight. This guy is probably, you could say Bo Nickel, this and that. You could say Haldosas Jr., whatever. And this, to me, Rebecki is like the most hyped signing from the show. You know, I think, honestly, we haven't actually seen Bonakel's full MMA skill set yet, so I might say that Mateusz Rebecki might have the most proven skill set of anyone that got signed up to Dana White's Contender Series. This guy is 16-1. He fought for FEN, and I believe he defended the title like 7 times or something absolutely ridiculous. This guy is amazing. We need to see Rebecki debut soon. I think this guy could probably make it into the top 15 at least and go on a pretty good run. I think you give him a couple of fights, and if he wins a couple of fights, you just give him a top 15 shot. This guy's amazing. He's really good. Cedric Dumas, I cannot wait for this guy's debut. Honestly, really, really looking forward to him to fighting soon. Hopefully, it's sometime this year, because he didn't take much damage. He didn't take any damage against Mateusz Penaz, to my knowledge, and looked amazing in that matchup. Submitted him in 47 seconds. You can't say no to that. Yusako Kinoshita beat Jose Henrique. Apparently won a UFC contract, but Yusako Kinoshita actually tweeted something on his Twitter or his Instagram or something. It was in Japanese, but the translation goes something like 2 weeks after the fight, and I still haven't received a UFC contract. This and that. So I actually don't know if Yusako Kinoshita is actually on the roster. I hope he is, because I like this guy a lot, and I think he's very exciting, but it's very interesting. Did he get a contract? Did he not? I hope he did. But we'll see how things play out in the future and see if Yusaku can get a debut. Week number 7. Ooh, this was Jimmy Lawson. Jimmy Lawson. Oh, wow. Anyway, so Teresa Blader beat Naoya Maya, didn't get a contract, which might be a massive mistake from the UFC. Because if Bellator pick this girl up at 20 years old, give her like 2 or 3 years, she's going to be a champion. In Bellator, that is. Like, this girl is so good and so skilled. It's actually insane. She's got a win over Lucy Pudilova. The fight after Lucy Pudilova got cut from the UFC originally. Like, look, she got cut from the UFC in 2020, the first month of 2020, January 2020. 4 months later, after getting cut from the UFC. So at that time, she still qualified as a UFC level fighter, quote unquote. She loses to Teresa Blader when she was 18 years old, actually, at the time. Teresa Blader, massive miss from the UFC. If I was in that room, I would be telling them to sign Teresa Blader no matter what the performance looked like. Blader is a huge problem for the future, and I don't know why they didn't just sign her, because she could go on a really good run. Ismail Bonfim, I picked Ismail Bonfim to win, guys. I know he was the favourite on the betting odds, but man, I feel like I might have been the first person on YouTube to put a video up about this fight and pick Ismail Bonfim with confidence. I don't know if I was for sure, but I'm going to take the credit, man. I'm going to take the credit. I picked Ismail Bonfim in this fight here. Nariman Abasov, he was too sloppy for Bonfim's insane amateur boxing background. 24-3 as an amateur, 4-1 as a pro from memory, something like that. Yeah, Bonfim's good, man. Bonfim's good, and I picked him to win the fight, and I might have been the first person on YouTube to do it too, so... Now, Carl Williams versus Jimmy Lawson. I've never been more wrong about a fight in my entire life. So Carl Williams takes this fight on like 4 days notice. He's a light heavyweight. His wrestling on the regional scene honestly doesn't look that good. Jimmy Lawson wrestled for Penn State, the same university, as what Bo Nickel did. NCAA Division 1 wrestler Jimmy Lawson gets out-wrestled by Carl Williams, who I couldn't find any wrestling background on whatsoever. And then gassed out in 2 minutes. Like, I couldn't believe it, honestly. Yeah, Carl Williams comes in on like 4 days notice, out-wrestles the NCAA Division 1 Penn State wrestler Jimmy Lawson. So, we'll see if Carl Williams wants to fight at 265 or 205, but yeah, good for him, man. Gabriel Bonfim rise to 13-0 over Trey Waters. Once again, a short notice replacement in Trey Waters. Shout out to him. He looked huge against Gabriel Bonfim. Trey Waters is a tall dude. Let me get that facts right. He's 6'5" at 170. You're gonna see Trey Waters in the UFC. Honestly, I think if he gets 1 or 2 more wins, you're gonna see Trey Waters in the UFC. He's only 27 years old. He's already beaten some good competition. Benjamin Bennett, probably the most underrated win on his entire record right there. Absolute insanity. But yeah, Gabriel Bonfim 13-0. He's already got his debut lined up for UFC 283 in Brazil against Munir Aziz, who was a lot older than I thought he was. He's only 35. He's 35 years old already. I like Bonfim in this matchup, man. He's a really good striker, and you didn't see much striking in that matchup, but Bonfim's boxing is crispy. I like Bonfim to win this fight, man. He's good. Bonfim's really good. He's 25 years old as well. 13-0 record. That's pretty scary, man. And Vitor Petrino versus Rodolfo Bellato was a banger of a fight. I picked Vitor Petrino. I was not confident in it whatsoever. He got it done. I don't think he's got a debut lined up. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a debut lined up for sometime next year. He did take a little bit of damage against Bellato. Maybe he wants to relax a little bit. He only did fight a couple of weeks ago, so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Petrino in the UFC. Once again, it doesn't matter if this guy has a successful or unsuccessful run. It's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be very exciting. So then we move on to another one here. Daniel Marcos beat Brandon Lewis, got a contract, put Peru on the map, low-key, for UFC. And I actually looked into it, and there are a lot of really good fighters in Peru right now that could be signed to the UFC. So maybe Daniel Marcos might start some sort of Peruvian wave of fighters into the UFC. Bruno Brazil won by KO and got a contract. You don't get a KO like that without getting a contract. Trevor Peake got a massive come-from-behind victory. Interesting fight. Malik Lewis was beating him up quite a bit. I picked Malik Lewis in the matchup. Trevor Peake, another KO win for him. He's on a massive KO streak right now, which is absolutely insane. But yeah, looking forward to his career. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Once again, successful or unsuccessful, it's going to be very, very exciting. Very exciting. Ikram Aliskerov as well, a guy that is going to make a run into the top 15. He's a world champion Sambo, I believe, something like that. His one loss to Khamzat Chimaev. The fight only lasted 2.5 minutes. But at the time, that was Khamzat Chimaev's toughest test before he got into the UFC. And he's come back, beat Dennis Tiulin, who's in the UFC right now, and a couple of really good fighters. Nashon Burrell, former UFC fighter. I believe he was on a win streak coming into that fight too. Beat Mario Souza, who's a UFC level fighter, in the first round by submission. Absolutely dominated him. Farid Bashirat dominated Alan Bagoso. You don't dominate Alan Bagoso like Farid Bashirat did. And Alan Bagoso is a good fighter. He's actually got really good wins on his record. Richard Palencia, that loss, he's actually making his debut in Bellator. So Alan Bagoso has been a stepping stone for a Bellator fighter and a UFC fighter in Farid. Farid, in my honest opinion, I don't think he's as polished as Javid Bashirat, his older brother, but I think give him some time, he's going to really develop. A lot of bantamweights were assigned this season, man. A lot of bantamweights were assigned, but that's cool. Week 9 and 10, I went 5-0 in both of these weeks, guys. Yeah, Jafal Filho, I picked him to win by submission. He got a KO actually at the end. It was pretty awesome. Hoiber Echeverria looked a lot better on the ground than I expected him to. Jafal Filho, no UFC debut booked yet. Obviously, he literally fought a couple of weeks ago. You can't really expect a debut to be booked so soon. Nurullo Aliyev versus Josh Wick. Nurullo Aliyev coming into this matchup. Interesting, they've changed his record. I thought coming into this record he was 6-0. They must have found another win on his record, maybe that he didn't have before, potentially. But yeah, now he's 8-0 undefeated. I swear he had less fights than that when the fight took place. Maybe I'm an absolute idiot, but yeah, he won by decision in all of his fights, and then all of a sudden got a ground and pound KO in the first round, which is cool. But Josh Wick had a really bad weight cut. Maybe that had something to do with it. First ever win inside the distance for Aliyev, apart from a corner stoppage. So good for him, man. Maybe he could be a problem. He literally fights exactly like Khabib does. Like literally the same style. It's actually kind of crazy. Austin Lane got a knockout against Richard Jacoby. It wasn't the most exciting performance, so I'm actually interested to see how Austin Lane looks in the UFC. I think that he should. I'm expecting Austin Lane versus Chase Sherman to be a fight that gets booked, and that's going to be very exciting and very interesting to see how it ends up as well. Raul Rosas Jr. got signed at 17. I think he turns 18 in like 5 days or something like that. I want to see Raul Rosas Jr. fight Guido Canetti. Hear me out here. Guido Canetti, he's fighting this weekend. I feel like I think he's re-signed to the UFC, so I think he's still got like 2 or 3 fights left on his contract. Raul Rosas Jr., 18 years old at the time of the fight. Guido Canetti, very likely to be 43 years old at the time of the fight. Just book it. 25-year age gap. It'll be the biggest in history. And we move on. Bruno Ferreira knocked out Leon Aliyev very early on into the fight. It was somewhat of an early stoppage, but it would not have changed the outcome. Bruno Ferreira was on his way to winning that fight, definitely. Yeah, he's on a massive win streak right now in the first round. In fact, all of his finishes are in the first round except for one that made it to the second round and lasted 12 seconds into the second round. This guy is a problem, man. Yeah, Bruno Ferreira, once again, if it's a successful run or an unsuccessful run in the UFC, it's going to be very, very exciting. And I don't see this guy losing to the bottom of the barrel 185ers. I think we can see Bruno Ferreira get at least a couple of wins in the UFC before he might meet someone that's going to give him a lot of problems. But yeah, looking forward to that one. We move on to week 10. Literally took place a week ago, little bit over a week ago at the time of recording, but Mateusz Madonka got a very quick KO, climbed to 10-0 over Ashik Jajim. Got a contract, good for him. Rafael Ramos Estevan got a ground and pound TKO over Jairo Elias. I picked him to win too, guys. Went 5-0 on the card. Don't forget, Jack Jenkins destroyed Linares on the ground, which I said was his path to victory. So, Jack Jenkins, if you watched my video and took my advice, I'm very happy. But no, I don't think he did. I think he just knew that he had a massive wrestling advantage, and he beat Linares that way. And that's what you got to do, man. Honestly, you don't go on Dana White's Contender Series. Well, some people might, but you shouldn't. At this point of your career, you don't go on Dana White's Contender Series to put on an exciting fight and potentially lose. You really should be going on Dana White's Contender Series to just to win, you know. And hopefully be impressive enough to get a victory there. But Yeah, good for Jack Jenkins. Dana wasn't too happy with his performance. I don't really know why. Jack Jenkins is a great fighter. He's going to win at least a couple of fights in the UFC when he makes his debut. So looking forward to it. Sam Patterson, 6'4" at 155, the tallest lightweight on the UFC roster right now. Insane. Vinicius Sensi fought for the first time in like 3 years. Looked pretty good, not gonna lie. Looked a lot better than I thought he was going to. But yeah, good for Sam Patterson getting a win there, and Bo Nickel. Donovan Beard, man, Bo Nickel. I don't know what happened, man, but Bo Nickel all of a sudden just looked amazing. Honestly, I think Bo Nickel's really gonna go on to do something. I'm predicting him to win his UFC debut as well, which is not a hot take, like whatsoever, because he's a minus 1800 favorite opening. Jamie Pickett plus 1100. Like, man, this is a gimme fight for Nickel. He really should win this matchup. And the thing about Pickett is, though, if Bo Nickel was making his debut, let's just use someone else as an example. Someone as an example. It may not be like probably okay. I just rambled for. So let's say if Bo Nickel was making his debut against Bruno Ferreira, I would say this. I think Bo Nickel's gonna win the fight, but he's got to watch out for the power of Bruno Ferreira. Bruno Ferreira is on a massive first round KO streak. And even has submissions in the first round as well. He's got to watch the KO power and the submission ability of Bruno Ferreira. When he fights Jamie Pickett, what is Jamie Pickett going to do? Jamie Pickett doesn't have KO power on the feet. He doesn't really have submission ability on the ground. The way that Jamie Pickett wins fights is he clinches you up against the cage and just barely wins that way. He's got no KO power to scare Nickel. He's got no submission ability on the ground to scare Nickel either. But this is just a gimme. This is just a gimme fight. Jamie Pickett's just an easy matchup for Nickel, unless he decides to kickbox him. And I will say this, Jamie Pickett is actually the more technical striker from what I've seen out of the two, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think Nickel's going to take him down, wrestle him, find a submission or ground and pound KO, something along those lines. Yeah, crazy. But yeah, interesting fight. The thing is, though, as I said, if Bo Nickel is making his debut against Bruno Ferreira, I would say Bo Nickel should win, but he has to watch the power of Bruno Ferreira. And this one here, it's Bo Nickel should win, but he's got no power to worry about, and he's got no submission ability on the ground to worry about either. Like, what? What a crazy debut. It's a gimme for Bo. It's a gimme. I would pick Donovan Beard to finish Jamie Pickett within 2 rounds. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But anyway, I think this was like a half an hour, 40-minute video. So if you actually made it this far, let me know in the comments. That's amazing if you did. This is probably the longest video I might have made on my entire channel. That's not a prediction video. So if you made it this far, I really do thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that Dana White's Contender Series review. Honestly, in my opinion, no one loves Dana White's Contender Series on YouTube as much as I do. I love Dana White's Contender Series, and I can't wait for it to come back. Probably sometime next year. Probably, I would say in like another 12 months time. I think maybe they do like July through to September like they did this year. I think there's rumors of Dana White's Contender Series in Asia, like an actual Dana White's Contender Series, not a road to UFC. And I saw someone mention the idea of Dana White's Contender Series Brazil again, and I think that could be a pretty good idea as well. But yeah, really looking forward to Dana White's Contender Series next year. It's so far away, but we've got Road to UFC to look forward to. If you like prospects, check them out. I'm gonna make some videos about Prospect Watch, about different countries that have prospects in them. I don't know which countries I'm gonna focus on, but yeah, it's gonna be exciting, man. Next week, we've got like no MMA. It's Cage Warriors 144 or nothing. So, yeah, I'm going to make a video about this. Dominic Wooden was meant to be on Dana White's Contender Series, actually. Little known fact, you might not know about it. But, yeah, Dominic Wooden was meant to be on Dana White's Contender Series, but he had like some sort of contract issue. So it didn't end up happening. So it'll be very interesting to see if he gets signed off a win over Michelle Martigioni. I think if he does, UFC might try and sign him, but maybe Dominic Wooden's not even interested in signing for the UFC. Maybe Dominic Wooden wants to sign for like Bellator or someone like that, which would be quite interesting. But yeah, I just rambled for a little bit longer. Now it's almost half an hour long video, so I've got 20 seconds to fill in for it to be a perfect 30-minute video. Yeah, as I said, I started boxing recently, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna start boxing 2 days a week. I probably won't fight because I have had major surgery on my jaw, but yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting a little bit healthier, and yeah, should be good. So thanks for watching the video. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Leave a comment, please, and like the video. If you made it this far, you gotta like the video, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you. See ya.